Afternoon, Peter. Thank you for having me.
Mike, nice to meet you.
Can you please introduce yourself? Just tell us who you are, where you work, and what you do for cycling.
Okay, so I'm Peter Jones. I'm a solicitor with Lime Solicitors. I've been a partner here for 5 years. I've actually been qualified for 40 years, and I specialise in serious personal injury claims. And it's an unfortunate truth that some of those relate to cycling accidents, and a significant number relate to spinal cord injuries. And that's become my speciality over the years. And I've been involved in this particular event this will be my 4th year.
In fact, so I think I discovered this event through having a conversation with you several months ago. I think I mentioned I was into cycling, and you mentioned the event.
I think you did, yeah. So we're heavily involved in a fantastic charity called the Spinal Injuries Association. And initially, not actually being a very experienced cyclist myself, I'm a sort of a retired hurt rugby player. I was a little bit apprehensive about doing this initially, but I was persuaded, without too much persuasion, to do the first ride, which was 4 years ago in Italy, and that was 250 miles, I think, over 3 days, and I absolutely loved it. I loved it, and I've got totally inspired by the whole event. It's been fantastic.
So is it fair to say that before this you weren't a cyclist, or wouldn't consider yourself a cyclist?
Not really. I'm a retired rugby player and very average judo fighter. But I found that it was one thing that I could not only get involved in, but really enjoy, and particularly in the association with this charity, which I've loved for all sorts of different reasons.
So tell me about your involvement with the charity, and so specifically let's look at what your involvement is with the event, and then how you got into that. Yeah.
So with the event, we partner with the Spinal Injuries Association. So we do work for spinally injured clients, and we're obviously very keen to help them. And I was invited to join. It's a major fundraising event for them. I think last year it raised about £90,000. I was interested because it's a great cause, it's a challenge which I absolutely love, and it's something I hadn't done before. I would not regard myself as an experienced cyclist prior to this, but I got involved in it and I absolutely loved it. Most of my sporting life, which has not been to any great heights, I played county rugby as a young one, and university rugby, played off and on until I was 50, was with people who were able-bodied, without any better term. But when I got involved with people with spinal cord injuries, cyclists with spinal cord injuries, it was just absolutely inspiring. And to put it in context, 2 of the riders on the first ride that I did were on handbikes, so they had no power in their legs at all, and they had to do the same course that we did, over 250 miles using just their upper body. Now, your body's designed, your legs are designed for traction, for motion, your arms are designed for throwing things and so on. You're not designed to do 3 days of constant effort using your upper body. But I was absolutely inspired, particularly by 2 of the competitors, one of whom is my sort of build, about 100 kilos, who competed on what was essentially a reinforced wheelchair with a driving wheel, and the other competitor, Gary Dawson, I think you'll probably want to speak to if you get a chance.
Absolutely.
It used a prone bike, and they just got on with it, and it's just so inspiring. I think apart from the fundraising aspect, which is really important, to me, I think the whole event is there to inspire others who've had spinal cord injuries. I think as a solicitor, it's amazing to see day to day the sort of problems that spinal cord injured people face. But as a bloke and as a sportsman of a very average ability, it's absolutely inspiring to see people who just don't give up, who just carry on. And if I can tell a little story this will be my 4th one. Last year we did a ride in Portugal. Portugal is hilly, It is not flat. It is not Holland.
And warm.
And warm.
Yeah.
And on the third day, we were on a hill that went on for, I believe, 10 miles. It might have been 100 miles for all I can tell you. And so you've got 30-degree heat coming off from the sun, and 30-degree heat coming off the road, because obviously black asphalt absorbs the heat. And I'm going to embarrass him, but Gary Dawson, one of the competitors, is my hero. He's going up this hill, and he's such an incredible effort on his body. He's basically in a sandwich maker with 30 degrees heat above him, 30 degrees heat below him, and he had to stop because it was just too hot. He couldn't breathe. He literally couldn't breathe. So he gathered around him, squirted water all over him. Somebody got an ice pack and stuck it down his shirt, but he wouldn't give in. And there's a lovely, lovely picture, which I'll try and find for you, of one of the guys on the ride riding along beside him with an umbrella as a parasol to keep the sun off him. And it's inspiring, and I'd recommend, I'm no great cyclist, there are much better cyclists than me, but I would think anybody who can ride a bike without stabilisers would be absolutely inspired by it. And I really hope that people who've had the misfortune to have a spinal cord injury would feel inspired by it as well. And it's amazing what you can do. I think I was the oldest on the ride. I'm pretty sure I was last year, and I'm going to keep going as long as I can, because it's just a wonderful event. Yeah, nice to have you joining us this year as well. Wait. Yeah. No, you'll love it. You'll love it. Yeah.
How many participants are on adapted bikes? So those with spinal cord injury? So
last year, I think we had 3 in total. One was on Gary was on a prone bike. And these are heavy things as well. They're not light.
Yes, they're not race bikes.
They're not race bikes. No, I mean, what does a race bike weigh? 3 or 4 kilos or something?
7-8 kilos.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Well, these things weigh, I don't know, 15, 20 kilos with the driving wheel on the front. And then there was a lady who had effectively only one functioning leg, and she did it on a trike with her one leg. And when she got to, this is one of the lovely memories I have, when she got to the end in Albufeira, she just burst into tears because she was just so delighted by what she'd done.
Yeah.
And it's a lovely event actually, because people stick together. You have 3 days with people, some of them you know, some of them you don't know. The groups tend to mix up very, very well. The young ones look after the old ones, like myself, but everybody looks after everybody pretty well, and it's a fantastic event. I feel it a privilege to do it, to be honest, and it raises a lot of money, and hopefully it inspires other people to get involved.
What does your training look like for this kind of event?
Well, a bit like doing your GCSEs, do you ever start early enough? Mine actually started a couple of weeks ago. I do 2 spin classes a week. On Sunday morning I did 45 miles in a group with some novices and some experienced cyclists. A friend of mine who is a very good cyclist said, in the weeks leading up to the event, you need to do as many miles as your longest day. So I'll probably try and do 40 miles in spin classes and 40 miles on a bike. The longest day is 80 miles. And I also do 100 squats a day, because I've got old knackered rugby players' knees, and anything that builds up the strength of your knees is good really. One of the pleasant surprises is actually cycling is very good for your knees. It's good for your joints generally. I'm really looking forward to it. If
there were people who don't consider themselves as cyclists considering the event,
definitely get involved. Last year there were, I won't embarrass them by mentioning the names, but last year there were 2 girls, women in their early 30s, I think, who would not regard themselves as cyclists, but they were generally pretty fit. And they got involved and they absolutely loved it, because the longest day is 80 miles. I think the shortest day this year is 60 miles. That sounds an awfully long way, but they choose the routes reasonably carefully. Nowhere, apart from probably the Saudi desert, is absolutely flat. But they try and choose the route so that it's accessible for all sorts. And they smashed it. They absolutely smashed it. And you could tell, listening to a lady this morning on the radio who was, she's now the England netball supremo, but she was heavily involved in sport at all sorts of levels. And sport just does amazing things for people, I think. And I don't think these women would regard themselves as particularly sporty, but they were reasonably fit, and they absolutely loved it, and they got really involved in it. And I think it's just a great thing to do.
I can't wait. You've given me loads of advice already, so I won't ask you for any additional tips.
Well, the major tips are drink loads and loads and loads of water.
Yeah.
Drink loads of water and try and go to bed at a reasonable time. I think one of the things to get across is there's something like 4,000 people have a spinal cord injury every year. And the Spinal Injuries Association does a huge amount to counsel them, to help them physically, to help them with their benefits, to help them with access to medical treatment, to get them involved in the real world. Because for some people, they perceive it as the end of their life, and their motto is life after spinal injury. It's great for us as lawyers to see. To see what people. So when we're talking to spinally cord injured people, we can tell them, well, look, I know it's a horrible place to be in, but your life isn't over. There's all sorts of things that you can do, and you can talk from first-hand experience. You've seen it at close range. I mean, the other side of the coin is you can see how difficult it can be for spinal cord injured people if there aren't accessible rooms and accessible toilets and accessible restaurants and so on. So it really broadens your knowledge really as well.
Yeah. It's a scary prospect because that can happen to anybody at any time. So it's not something that
people do it falling out of bed. People you assume it's something dramatic, but it could be falling out of bed, slipping on a bathroom floor. It could be a motorbike accident. This is what a lot of people assume. I think quite a lot of the patients are elderly, but all sorts of people can be inspired. I don't think there's a cure for spinal cord injuries as yet, but they can be inspired to get the best out of their lives. Yeah. And I'm looking on it as an outsider, and I'm inspired by those that I've worked with. It's been a privilege, really.
It's been a privilege. That's exactly that, isn't it? That absolute inspiration.
It is, yeah. It is. It's a cliche, but it is inspiring, yeah.
Yeah. I went to a talk by a mountain biker called Martin Ashton, who's in a wheelchair now from a mountain bike accident.
Right.
And he said when it happened, he was in hospital shortly after, but his mindset was, I'm in a wheelchair now. I wonder what the fastest time to go a mile in a wheelchair is. And his mindset wasn't that, he's not going to be able to ride his bike anymore. Yeah. His mindset instantly went to, what can I excel at now? And I think that's probably one of the important things to think about. Like you said, SIA don't just support with the healthcare side of things. They will counsel people, they're advocates.
Encourage you, support you, help you get your life together, really. This year is absolutely wonderful route from Venice to Vicenza, I think it's called, Vicenza. Vicenza to Verona, Verona to Mantua, Mantua to Bologna. I think they've chosen the route to avoid the worst of the hills, but whatever it is, we'll get on with it,
So I've chosen a good year.
I think you've chosen a very good year. Yeah. I think it will sell out, I suspect, this ride.
Right, so people need to get signed up.
Get signed up and get your sponsorship in. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
That's the major thing, get your sponsorship in. And if you start early, send individual WhatsApps to all your mates. Don't do group ones, they ignore those. Individual WhatsApps. And if they don't reply within a week, hassle them again. You lose friends, but you raise money.
Who needs friends?
Who needs friends? Yeah. And I find generally cycling groups are really good. They're really supportive.
Yeah.
And professional contacts are good as well. But that's what you're there for, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
To raise the money. They need the money. So.
What does a typical day look like when you're in the event?
Yeah. Okay. So you arrive the day before. There's a nice dinner in the hotel. Everyone's arrived during the course of the day depending on the flight times. I think we fly into Venice. So some people arrive in the morning, we arrive mid-afternoon. You all get together, get to know each other, a lot of familiar faces. Some people are quite nervous about what they're going to be doing because they've not done long events, and so you're all having a chat to each other and seeing what your experience is like, where you're from, you know, usual. It's a bit like Freshers Week at uni. I can vaguely remember that from 1,000 years ago. And you're just trying to make everybody feel part of the group. You'll have a meet time that's quite early. You get up. I've developed a, I don't know if you call it an obsession, but I have 5 croissants for breakfast. That is I have a breakfast and I have 5 croissants on top, because it's just all about getting your carbs in, isn't it?
It's your cycling fuel.
It's my cycling fuel, yeah. Only little ones, but those little fruity ones. Yeah. I'll have 5 croissants and a full breakfast. And then probably about a litre of water if I can before you start. And have those little, what do you call them, those ionising tablets, whatever they're called. Electrolyte.
Electrolytes, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then you all set off together and you very rapidly spread out. But you stop probably 3 times during the day, morning, once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and for a lunch. You have a sort of fairly simple lunch. And then you'll arrive at the hotel. I mean, it depends. It could be anything from, I think this time it's something like 60 miles and 80 miles, something like that. So you spread out over the course of the day, but everybody's there by 5 o'clock. You have a nice, very sociable dinner in the evening. Some people who should know better stay up and chat until 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning and live to regret it. Others go to bed at a sensible time. Not giving you any clues about that one. But then you're often up, I think on the last day in Portugal, you might be up at 7. It is important to get up, get yourself, warmed up, have as much food as you can get in really at that point, and then particularly when it's hot, and it'll be hot in Italy in May, I think. Get as much liquid. Drink before you're thirsty.
Yeah.
Drink before you. Don't leave it until you're thirsty. That's too late. And we stop. I think we stop. We can stop whenever you like, but we stop. We have organised stops. 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, and probably half an hour for lunch. The trouble is, you get older, of course, is you actually seize up when you stop. So, although it's quite attractive to stop, it's actually probably better to limit it to maybe half an hour.
Yeah.
I was in Portugal. I don't know, it was the first or the second day, and a guy I'd never spoken to, subsequently came to have a chat to, got to know him reasonably well, came up beside me and he said, "Stop fighting it. Stop fighting it." Now, as a rugby player, that would never occur to me, something as subtle as stop fighting it. But because I was fighting the hill, I was scrapping with the hill to get up it. But he said, just stop fighting it. And he's absolutely right. It doesn't achieve anything at all. You're putting all your body into it, but just try and just get up it. Get up it, yeah. And I try to apply that. And you have some great conversations with people. You find all sorts of insights into people's lives. I spent quite a bit of time with 2 of the spinally cord injured guys, and you get such an insight into their lives that you wouldn't normally. You don't very often get to sit down and talk to somebody for maybe 2 or 3 hours at a time, and that's just such a privilege. I think really such an insight.
Yeah, I think the whole thing's going to be quite a good learning experience for myself.
It is.
Coming from, I don't have any direct experience of anyone with an SCI, so that isn't in my life as such. So it'll be so interesting to learn. Obviously, learning about what the SCI does has been great. And then getting first-hand experience and knowledge from those inspirational people who are just getting on with life as if it was just every day's normal. So a conversation with one of these guys or girls is just such an eye opener, and they go through such a horrific roller coaster of experiences. Of so some of them will be, 2 of the guys who do the ride were both injured in motorbike accidents, and so what your average motorcyclist is like, head down, life full on, and then they think their life is over, and they go through this roller coaster of emotions until they work out who they are and what they can do with the rest of their lives. One of them has been spinally cord injured for 20 years, and
you get some amazing insight into how they get through it and how they hope to get other people through it. So, my message is, get hassling your mates.
Put the work in.
Put the work
Don't be shy.
in. Don't be shy. Just get on with it, really. And and in the process, you'll have a great time.
Yeah.
And you'll really appreciate the work that the SIA does, and you'll really appreciate what an amazing achievement all the riders have achieved who've done it, and it's a memorable experience. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Peter, thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you.
Amazing.
Really,
so good.
Really interesting.